You snapped at someone you love, over nothing. A small comment, and you reacted like they'd insulted your entire family. Then, 20 minutes after a sandwich, you felt the storm pass and thought, what was that about? Here's what it was about. You weren't actually angry at them. You were hungry, and your hunger turned you into a slightly different, much worse version of yourself. We've turned it into a joke word. Hangry, hungry, and angry fused together. But it's real, it's physical, and understanding it can genuinely save your relationships. Let's start with the fuel. Your brain is an extraordinarily hungry organ. Although it's a small fraction of your body weight, it burns a huge share of your energy, and its preferred fuel is glucose, a simple sugar your body extracts from the food you eat. Your brain runs on glucose almost constantly, and it doesn't store much of its own. It depends on a steady supply arriving through the blood. When you haven't eaten for a while, the level of glucose in your blood drops, and your brain, that demanding, energy-hungry organ, starts to feel the shortage. But this is the part that matters. Not all of the brain handles a fuel shortage equally. The newest, most sophisticated part of your brain, the region behind your forehead responsible for self-control, patience, careful thinking, and regulating your emotions, is also the most energy expensive. It's the part that takes the most effort to run, that costs the most fuel. So when glucose runs low, this high-cost self-control center is one of the first things to falter. The very part of your brain that keeps you calm, measured, and reasonable starts to run on empty exactly when you need it most. And when that self-control center weakens, the more primitive, emotional parts of your brain are left less supervised. Normally, your thinking brain sits on top of your emotional reactions, moderating them, catching the flash of irritation before it becomes an outburst, choosing a calm response over an impulsive one. But that moderating requires fuel and effort, and a hungry brain can't spare it. So the emotional brain gets louder, less filtered, more reactive. The brakes are low on fluid, and the impulses sail right through. You feel irritable, short-tempered, easily set off, because the system that would normally keep all that in check has gone quiet. There's a chemical layer that makes it worse. When your blood sugar drops too low, your body treats it as a genuine threat to survival, because it is. So it releases stress hormones, including cortisol and adrenaline, to push stored energy into the blood and protect you. But these are the same hormones involved in the fight or flight response, the body's alarm system. So a hungry body is, chemically, a body on alert, primed for stress, leaning toward fight. You're not just low on fuel, you're flooded with the exact chemicals that make a person tense, edgy, and quick to anger. Hunger doesn't just remove your patience, it actively tilts you toward aggression. Put it all together, and the hangry state makes complete sense. Low glucose starves the self-control center, so your emotional brain runs unsupervised. Stress hormones flood in, priming you for conflict. The result is a person who's irritable, impulsive, easily hurt, and quick to lash out over things that wouldn't bother them at all on a full stomach. It isn't a character flaw, and it isn't really about whatever you snapped at. It's your brain, deprived of fuel, temporarily losing access to its own best qualities. This connects to a bigger idea about self-control in general. Resisting impulses, staying patient, regulating your emotions, all of it draws on your body's energy. When you're depleted, whether from hunger, exhaustion, or having spent the whole day forcing yourself to focus, your capacity for self-control drops. This is why people are more likely to lose their temper, give in to temptation, or make poor decisions when they're tired and hungry at the end of a long day. The willpower tank runs on real, physical fuel, and when the fuel is low, the tank runs dry. You haven't become a worse person. You've become a depleted one. It's worth knowing how much this quietly shapes daily life, because the effects are larger than we like to admit. Studies have found that important decisions can be influenced by something as mundane as whether the decision maker has eaten recently. People are harsher, less patient, and less generous when hungry, and noticeably more reasonable after a meal. That difficult conversation, that big decision, that moment when you need to be at your most measured and kind, all of it goes better on a fed brain than a starving one. The food isn't a luxury in those moments. It's the fuel your best self runs on. So what do you do with this? The most powerful move is simply awareness in the moment. When you feel a surge of irritation, anger, or despair, especially if it seems bigger than the situation warrants, pause and ask one question. When did I last eat? It sounds almost too simple, but it's remarkably effective. Just recognizing this might be hunger, not a real crisis. This might be my blood sugar talking, not my true judgment, can take the heat out of the moment. You stop trusting the angry feeling as the truth, because you know its source might be an empty stomach rather than a real problem. The second move is prevention, building your life so you're less often running on empty. Don't schedule the hard conversation, the tense meeting, or the important decision for the moment you're hungriest. Eat first. Keep your blood sugar reasonably steady through the day rather than letting it crash. If you know you get hangry, treat it as a real thing to manage, not a quirk to laugh off, because the version of you with low blood sugar is genuinely more likely to say something you'll regret. Feeding yourself before a hard moment isn't indulgence. It's giving your best self the fuel it needs to show up. And there's a gentle wisdom in extending this understanding to others too. When someone you love snaps at you, especially before a meal or late in a long day, it's worth remembering that their hunger might be doing the talking, not their heart. Sometimes the kindest, most effective response to a grumpy person isn't to argue back, it's to quietly hand them something to eat and revisit the conversation in 20 minutes. You'd be amazed how many conflicts are really just two depleted brains running low on glucose, mistaking their own hunger for a reason to fight. The next time you feel yourself getting irrationally angry, snapping at the people around you over nothing much, stop and check in with your body before you trust the feeling. It might not be the situation at all. It might be your brain, low on fuel, with its self-control center flickering and its stress hormones rising, turning you into someone you're not. Hunger can hijack your judgment, your patience, and your kindness without ever announcing itself as hunger. Sometimes the wisest, most loving thing you can do for yourself and everyone around you is simply to eat and have the hard conversation after.